Hi Vintage Bakers! Today I'm in the kitchen making stuffing bread.
When I make stuffing, I like to bake all the fragrant spices right into the bread, along with a few sweet bursts of dried raisins, cranberries, or both.
Don't worry if you're only here to make a quick stuffing recipe without baking your own bread first. Just skip ahead and I'll show you how to make this quick and easy crock pot stuffing.
So let's get into the kitchen. This is how I make stuffing bread and easy crock pot stuffing.
I'm going to start this recipe by baking some delicious fragrant stuffing bread. In the bowl of a stand mixer or in a large bowl if you're making the recipe by hand, add in 1 cup of warm water and 1 cup of warm milk. The warmth of the liquid is going to help the yeast soften and puff up. To the liquid, stir in 1 teaspoon of brown sugar and then sprinkle on top 2 1/4 teaspoons or 1 packet of dry active yeast. I'm going to set this aside for a few minutes for the yeast to soften and become foamy. Now I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of butter, 1 tablespoon of dried rosemary. I happen to have some fresh rosemary on hand, so I'm using that today instead of dried. 1 1/2 tablespoons of dried sage. This is what gives the stuffing that unmistakable smell and flavor. 1 tablespoon of thyme, 1 tablespoon of parsley, a 1/2 cup of raisins, and a 1/4 cup of dried cranberries. Finally, I'm going to add in 4 1/2 cups of all-purpose flour. Mix this and then knead the dough for about 8 minutes if you're using a machine, or 10 minutes if you're kneading the dough by hand. The dough should be smooth and elastic, and clean the sides of the bowl while it's mixing. Cover the dough and allow it to rise in a warm spot for 1 hour or until it has doubled in size. Now that my dough has risen, I'm going to tip it out onto a floured countertop. Split the dough in half and form each into a loaf. To do this, I just like to flatten out the dough and then fold it in thirds, kind of like how you would fold a piece of paper going into an envelope. Then, working in the opposite direction, roll and press into a log shape. Once both of my bread loaves are shaped, I'm going to place them on a lined baking sheet and allow them to rise in a warm spot until just about doubled again, which should take about 30 minutes, depending on the temperature of your kitchen. Right before going into the oven, make a few slashes on the top of each loaf. Then pop them into a preheated 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius oven and bake for 15 minutes. Then reduce the heat to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius and continue to bake for another 25 minutes, or until the bread is nicely golden and sounds light and hollow when tapped. This bread is absolutely perfect just as it is if you want to make some amazing holiday leftover sandwiches. Or if you're a big fan of stuffing, it just might be your new favorite bread loaf to slice and enjoy with butter. However, if you're using this for stuffing like I am, then continue on with the next part of this recipe, the easy crock pot stuffing. Once the bread is cool enough to handle, you can either slice it or rip it into rough chunks or cubes to dry out over the next day. I'm going to lay my bread out into a single layer on a tray and let it air dry. If, however, you need to dry the bread out faster, you can place it into a low oven. The day of the holiday feast, I'm going to be making the stuffing in a crock pot, which is my favorite way to make stuffing. And let's be honest, most times stuffing is being made is when you're having a big feast like Christmas or Thanksgiving. The oven is usually overrun by other things, so making this recipe in a crock pot is not only super easy, but one less thing fighting for room in your oven. To get the stuffing going, I'm going to dice half an onion and 8 ribs of celery. I'm going to fry this together in a medium-high pan with a little bit of butter until soft and lightly browned. This is going to give my veggies a lovely sweet caramelized flavor. Meanwhile, in the bowl of a crock pot, I'm going to add in the dried cubed bread. If you're not using the stuffing bread from this recipe, you'll need about 12 cups of bread of your choice. Add the sauteed veggies on top, and then in a bowl I'm going to add 1 cracked egg along with 2 to 3 cups of broth. I usually start with 2 cups of broth at the beginning. As the stuffing is cooking throughout the day, if it looks a little dry, add in the last cup of broth. If you're using the pre-seasoned stuffing bread from this recipe, then just mix this together and turn on the crock pot and let it cook away. However, if you're using regular bread, then add in 1 tablespoon of dried rosemary, 1½ tablespoons of dried sage, 1 tablespoon of dried thyme, 1 tablespoon of dried parsley, a half a cup of raisins, and a 1/4 cup of dried cranberries. Mix this into the rest of the ingredients in the crock pot, cover and allow it to cook throughout the day. A few times throughout the day, give it a quick stir and check for any dryness. And that is really all there is to this simple, fragrant side dish. Once the time is done on the crock pot, it's ready to serve alongside the rest of your festive dinner and will give off its fragrant aroma to make your whole house smell like the holidays. Enjoy! If you're a fan of deliciously simple vintage recipes and old-fashioned skills, then you'll want to check out this next video. Thanks for stopping by.